My name is Maria. I'm from Greece, and this is a true story which happened with me some time back. Right out of college, I worked as a professional babysitter for a year. It was a great gig, and I really bonded with the kids. Some were brattier than others, but I truly believed that every child was good at heart. And then I met the Thomas twins, Josie and Jonathan. Their father was a businessman, and their mother was a socialite, so of course the twins were spoiled brats. Mr. Thomas agreed to pay me double my usual amount because he knew that they were difficult. Troubled was the word he used. I assured him that I could handle them. I had a degree in child psychology, and I'd always had a knack for getting children to like me. I showed up to their house on Friday night. The place was enormous. Because this was my first time there, I expected Mr. and Mrs. Thomas to spend some time introducing me to the kids and going over their house rules. Instead, they were out the door as soon as I walked in. "The twins are playing upstairs. Good luck." That was my first sign that this was not going to be a typical babysitting job. I looked around the house and checked out the kitchen to see what food the parents had left for us. Then I went upstairs to meet the twins. Josie was lighting her Barbies on fire, and Jonathan was watching and giggling. I rushed over and immediately grabbed the Barbie out of her hand and dropped it into the trash can. Then I introduced myself and calmly explained the dangers of fire. I asked Josie why she would burn her doll like that. "Just practicing." That gave me the chills. After that initial meeting, things became pretty normal. The kids drew pictures, and they asked me questions about my life. I strongly believe that babysitters need to always be honest with their kids and to answer any questions they have. So, I told them about my life and my goals for the future. I felt like it was going well, until I asked to see their pictures. Jonathan drew a woman who looked a lot like me. She was scared of something, like she had seen something she shouldn't have. He used up all of the red crayon. Then, I saw Josie's paper. She hadn't drawn a picture at all. Instead, she wrote down a list of information that I had just told her about myself. I asked her why she was taking notes. "Just in case." These kids were really freaking me out. I decided that art time was over. I said that it was time to go downstairs so I could get their dinners ready. They did not like that idea. Josie started screaming, and Jonathan broke every single crayon on the table, glaring at me the entire time. I had to pull them out of the room. By the time I took them downstairs, I noticed that Josie had hidden a pair of scissors in her back pocket. I confiscated that. As I microwaved them leftovers, I laid out some ground rules for the weekend. They acted like they were listening. Then, I served them each a plate. Josie took one bite and spat it into Jonathan's hair. Jonathan just laughed. "No spitting, please." They took that as a personal challenge. Both of them threw food right at my face. I jumped out of my chair, but they just followed me throughout the house. With their plates in their hands, they just kept scooping up food and throwing it at me. I had to lock myself in the bathroom until they calmed down. I could hear them outside the door, giggling and talking about me. Josie was listing off the names of all my family members. I guess she'd memorized them. I had no idea why she did that. Still in the bathroom, I tried to call their father, but the call went straight to voicemail. I didn't know what else to do. When I finally got out of the bathroom, after washing my face and rubbing soap on all the food stains, the twins were sitting on the couch, watching Coco Melon and acting like nothing had happened. I was done with this. I told them it was time to go to bed. Without saying anything, they both stood up and walked toward their bedroom. The fact that they didn't argue with me was really unnerving. I made sure they were in bed and turned off their light. As I was leaving their bedroom, I told them good night. "Sweet dreams." It took me a while to go to sleep. I kept thinking about how I would handle the rest of the weekend. I'd been trained to deal with difficult children, but this was next level. I honestly had no idea what I was going to do. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. The room was dark, so I couldn't see the twins, but I knew they were there. Then, I felt a splash of liquid on my butt. At first, I thought they'd dumped water on me, but then I smelled it. Alcohol. Those little monsters had emptied a bottle of vodka onto my bed. Where did they even get that? I forced myself to stay calm, even though I wanted to scream. In a stern voice, I told them to get out of the room. Jonathan just laughed. But Josie, she said something that will always haunt me. Let's see if she burns faster than Barbie. That psychopath dropped a lighter on me, and my vodka-soaked pajama pants immediately went up in flames. I'd never felt such excruciating pain. My ass was on fire. I hopped out of the bed and tried to pat away the fire, but that just burned my hands. Looking back, I should have just dropped to the floor and rolled around. That's what you're supposed to do, but I was in too much pain to think straight. I raced into the bathroom and switched on the shower. It didn't work. The kids had somehow turned off the water. Screaming in pain, I collapsed into the bathtub, which was still wet enough to put out the fire. I lay there for a while, my anger outweighing my pain, and the twins stood just outside the door, watching me and smiling. Barbie burned faster. An ambulance took me to the hospital. I guess a paramedic waited with the twins until their parents came back. My parents ended up paying for my surgery to get my butt fixed. The family didn't apologize, though. Apparently, this sort of thing happened a lot.